Welcome to Godsplaining, Contemplative Preachers, Contemporary Age. Each week, join the Dominican friars as they consider all things Catholic.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Godsplaining. This is Father Patrick Mary Briscoe, and I'm joined today by the great, the one, the only, Father Bonaventure Chapman. How are you, Father Bonaventure?
I'm doing great. There is only one of me, I suppose. That's how hexaeties work. So persons, there's only one. But I'm glad to be the only one. It would be weird if there was more than me, I suppose. So I'm glad that multiverses aren't true. I'm glad that time travel isn't true. I'm glad all these things are true, so there's only one. I don't have to keep track of other people that are me. So that's great. And yourself?
You're basically a Tigger. That's what I'm thinking of. That song from Winnie the Pooh where Tigger is just delighting in the fact that he's the only one. I'm the only one.
Well, it's a little egocentric, I suppose, but
so your interpretation was certainly more nuanced and intellectual than the bouncy, fun song for children that was running through my mind. But I'm great. I mean, one thing that's interesting about this episode is that Father Bonaventure and I live together in the same house, but we are not together for this episode in the same house. I am preaching a retreat for seminarians here at the San Alfonso Retreat House, which is exciting. It's the first retreat I've preached to seminarians, and no one has left yet, so that's nice.
To be fair, it's the first day, right?
Second day, okay.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay,
but even still, you know,
yeah,
even
that's
still,
great.
We'll count the days canonically. So,
and this is in New Jersey, the great state of New Jersey.
It is the great state of New Jersey at the San Alfonso Retreat House, so we should be getting paid for this. This is a great commercial. But it's a lovely retreat house. There's a community of Redemptorist priests here, and it's on the shores of the ocean. So it's right by the seaside. So you get all the lovely wind and smells and sounds of the sea. I slept with my window open last night, just listening to the sea.
Was this North Jersey or South Jersey?
North Jersey.
Okay.
Yep.
See,
this is
my
North Shore.
See, my father is from New Jersey. So, but Cape May down south, and I always, when I meet someone from New Jersey, I was excited to see if anyone's actually from Cape May. I've met one at Providence College. One student was from Cape May, but it's a kind of resort town area, so it's not surprising you don't see too many people from there. So I have a soft spot because, dear listeners, as you might know, New Jersey is considered the armpit of America, but that's not true. I think there's worse states. I think there are. Now, North Jersey, not
Name
great.
them. Name. No, just kidding.
Well, look, I mean, Delaware's okay, but what does it have to offer, really? You know, and Ohio's growing on me. But I guess I'm sure New Jersey is just because of my father. But I've always wanted to stick up for Jersey because I don't think it's the worst state in the union. But if you ask me which one is, I'm not sure I will tell you nor know. I just know there's another one.
There's got to be something worse. I will
Maybe
say
Hawaii. I don't know.
The hospitality here is incredible, and I'm enjoying the time in prayer. But we're not talking about retreats or New Jersey or the worst states in America tonight. Our episode is on the very light, the very easy to access, the very soft and comforting doctrine of purgatory. Now, Father Bonaventure, you are a convert to the Roman Catholic faith, as gets mentioned from time to time on this show.
That's correct.
I think basically every time you're on. this comes out.
It's my most distinctive quality, other than my high widow's peak, I suppose. But yeah, Protestant convert is the most distinctive spiritual quality of my existence.
I was going to say expert in Immanuel Kant, but okay, we'll go with Protestant. Yeah, fine Protestant. Once a Protestant, formerly Protestant, no longer a Protestant, now a Catholic priest, which is important, right? We're in the now, as we're present to God in the now. So as a Protestant, I thought it would be interesting to start here. What was your take on the doctrine of purgatory? Was this like just an insane thing that Catholics believed, or did you have a more rich encounter with it? What was your first take on purgatory?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was thinking about this as we were talking about the episode, and I hate to say it, but it always seemed right. I think it's because of C.S. Lewis. Listeners might be familiar with his Mere Christianity, where C.S. Lewis believes a few, quote unquote, he's Anglo-Catholic, believes a few Catholic things. Anglo-Catholic in American terms, not in British terms. But he believes a bunch of Catholic things, and purgatory is one of them. And in that book, Mere Christianity, which I read early on in my evangelical career, you could say, he says purgatory just makes the most sense in the world. Something because he says it just seems so natural for me to be praying for my friends who have died. There's just nothing more that I do more spontaneous and naturally. And I think the premise is that your intuitions on this are somehow justifying, so that there are some things you might naturally do, but you might reflect on them and say, that's crazy. I shouldn't be doing that. Like there's no reason for me to keep touching this door handle or what have you, like if you have some sort of issue. But with him, he says it's natural, and then I ask myself, why do I do this? And it's still natural. Like, it still seems, I can't, it's like, it's the base justification. And that's how I've always thought purgatory, it makes sense, not because praying for, at least it didn't, that makes sense to me now, but when I was a Protestant, it just made sense, given total depravity and kind of our sinfulness, that to come into the presence of the all-holy God, if it was to be me there, then I had to take a shower, or kind of do some final, mud sweeping off things. And it couldn't just be that God looks at me and doesn't see the mud, even though it's there. Like, it had to not be there, And whatever you do with that, that's just purgatory, That's just... So it always struck me as a very sane thing to believe, and in fact, kind of insane not to believe it, I mean, Calvin's, I think, version of this, he has what soul sleep, so the soul just kind of goes to sleep until the general resurrection. And that just, I don't know how how does the soul sleep? I mean, I sleep, but my soul sleeps? I don't understand that. So anyway, purgatory always, it just didn't strike me as anything, as a problem. It seemed perfectly reasonable.
I find that very comforting to believe, because I'm always questioning whether or not this makes any sense. As a cradle Catholic and as someone that's basically been always deep in on all the Catholic things, I have to admit that I don't readily have the most critical sense on this. I often just sort of shrug my shoulders and say, well, yeah, how could it be other than that? So I do appreciate hearing that someone could say, yes, well, this is an intuitive thing, and I especially like the point that you mentioned, because it gives us a great departure point for the episode, which is to say that the most important thing for us to know about purgatory is that we are living in relation to this already. Because one thing that is very boring is when you turn on an episode of Catholic Apologetics and you think, okay, these guys are going to talk about some idea, some principle, some doctrine that doesn't really impact me, that's very far away from me. But as you say, purgatory is in fact very close to us, because it involves a kind of natural and spontaneous reaction, something that we do all the time, which is to pray for the dead. So purgatory is taken as a doctrine, is the explanation, a kind of fleshing out and understanding of why it is that we would do that thing, and why our prayers for the dead are important. Our prayers for the dead are more than, for example, simply missing someone. As you say, they really change us. That what we understand by purgatory is a purification, a final readiness. Like we said, a washing, a getting prepared to meet the King, a kind of wrapping up of things that are left untended to in life. I like also that you mentioned C.S. Lewis right at the beginning of this conversation, because his book, The Great Divorce, is very interesting on this point. Because purgatory, now you can read that book and have difficulty with it, because his understanding of purgatory is not clear there. And if I was asked point blank, does C.S. Lewis believe in what the Catholic Church teaches about purgatory, I think I'd have to say I don't know, because I don't think it overlaps quite so easily. But in The Great Divorce, you do have the idea that there are certain people that continue in the afterlife, continue to struggle on their way to heaven because they are bound down by things, and the realness of heaven continues to be a horror for them, and they have to be prepared. They have to become more completely who they were made to be in the eyes of God in order to bear the real things of heaven. But I wonder, before we move on, if you wanted to comment on any of the ideas in The Great Divorce. That's a big question, a big invitation.
Yeah, I mean, it's C.S. Lewis for me is he's got great insights, and he has like individual cool. So the insights from that book, if I remember correctly, there's a beautiful thing that sticks in my mind about the grass being hard, the grass being sharp. Like in the we think of the afterlife as being less real, as like floating around in ethereal kind of ghost-like bodies or something. But he does a nice job of like flipping it and saying actually like it's more real. And so the grass on your feet in purgatory or in the afterlife, you could say, in that as he has it, it's almost like staining. It's grass, and you really keep looking down and wondering if it's really grass, because grass doesn't like sting you or like touch you. It's not this real. And so I love how he flips things around like that. I don't have much to say. He believes that you can. I mean, he has like bus trips and such, so that you can escape the bad place. You could say. I've been watching The Good Place, and so I'm thinking in bad place, good place terms. He thinks you can like escape. You can swap places. Whereas the Catholic doctrine, of course, in a sense, purgatory is like, you made it, great job, well done. Now, before we go into the real deal, kind of thing. So like no one, just in case there's someone, as you know, purgatory is like you made it, but you got a little more work to do. But you're good. We're not going to reject you. You're not going to fail. Like it's good to go. Your thumbs up. You're on the right track, and you can't lose from that. So his is a little more flexible. Although, to be honest, C.S. Lewis, we probably shouldn't read too much dogmatics into his kind of fictional accounts. Yeah. You could say that's probably fair. I think that's all I got.
I like the idea of purgatory as a kind of getting ready. So one of the things that has really resonated with me lately, as a young man, as a young priest, a lot of my peers, my sisters, and their friends are still getting married. And when you go to a wedding today in America, especially, it seems, although I presume everywhere else in the world it's the same, because these cultural things seem to transcend divisions of nations. But there is lots of getting ready for weddings. Like for me, a nearly intolerable amount of getting ready, to the point where I just say to my family, "All right, I'll see you at the church." I am not going along with all of the getting ready that is about to happen in these things. This happened to me just recently at my cousin's wedding, which was a phenomenal wedding, but there was a lot of getting ready, and I was just not going to have anything to do with it. So I think one way we might think of purgatory as a kind of getting ready for the wedding, because it's clearly not the wedding. It's not the thing you came there to do, right? It's a still preparation, but you know that you're in the right place. Like if you've arrived, you're at the hotel, you have all of your clothes, you have things ready. Like you're going to make it to the wedding. It's not like you're stuck in the airport. It's not like you missed your flight. You're well on the way. What do you think about that?
Well, and you have I like the wedding. The wedding analogy is good because in a sense you're on the guest list. You might not be the best man, for instance. That's St. Peter or what have you, but you're on the list. You've turned in your, the meal is picked out. You chose salmon or whatever it is. Like you're good. You have a seat there, but you're not there. And I think that getting ready is the right thing, because if someone said, just come to the wedding, and you say, okay, well, I've got to get my tux, or I've got to get my dress, I've got to make sure I'm doing my hair, I've got to make sure I look presentable because this is an important occasion, fellas. And we don't even think otherwise. We never say like, oh, I wish I could just kind of wear jeans and a t-shirt and not shower before. Like, I hope no one thinks this. It's just something now, how dressed up you get. But there's a sense of the wedding garment, right? This is a biblical passage in one of the parables that Christ has man showing up on the wedding garment. There's a sense in which it would be wrong for you if someone said, "Oh, don't worry, I know you're running a little bit late, and so you don't have to actually put on any special clothes. You can just come in jeans and a t-shirt and be." You would feel awkward. I think you would feel uncomfortable. You would feel like you'd done something wrong, or you'd kind of cheated a system. There'd be some kind of lack of decorum in a strong sense, not just a convention, but like a rightness to it. And it strikes me that purgatory has that. This is why I think it's just so bizarre people don't believe in this. It is so natural that whenever you enter the presence of someone who is above you, or on a special occasion or a wedding, that you want to be presentable and you want to be fixed up and all this, and it just would not feel right to show up just as you are, right? And for heaven, I think it just feels like to me the same thing. We don't know when we're going to die. And if you'd ask me, am I ready now? I'm ready to desire it, but am I? So I want him. I want eternity with Christ, But am I ready in the sense of, like, would I feel comfortable with him right now? No, I don't. Not really. I don't think I'm not ready for that. He's not. Now I know grace. Okay, it's not me. It's don't be Pelagians, this sort of thing. So it's cooperating, but it's still it's about you being ready. I'm gonna need his help, but it can't just be presto switcho. I think there's got to be some attachments and some habits that have to be left. And I like that it would feel awkward to be in a wedding unprepared. I think it would feel awkward to be in heaven without having gone through some sort of preparation and final detachment.
Friends, you're listening to Godsplaining. We're chatting here about purgatory. We're sort of covering the way you start the conversation. I began by asking Father Bonaventure about what he thought as a Protestant. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the biblical images for purgatory, some of the Catholic proofs, the evidences of purgatory, and maybe even get into indulgences. So we'll be back with you in just a moment.
You are listening to Godsplaining. Visit us at godsplaining.org to listen to our episodes, shop our store, and donate to our podcast. All gifts go to improving the podcast and bringing the gospel to more listeners. Thanks for your support.
Friends, thanks for tuning in. You're listening to Godsplaining. Father Bonaventure Chapman and Father Patrick Briscoe here chatting about purgatory. The Catechism says this. We haven't yet given a formal definition. The Catechism says that purgatory is a purification so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. That was pretty good, Father Bonaventure. We got there. And that all of this is experienced by those who die in God's grace and friendship, but still imperfectly purified. So
we nailed it.
That's all pretty good.
Yeah, look at that. Done. Intuitive, see? Intuitive.
Boom. Logic. You would hope that a couple priests would know about this stuff. One of the images that's very common, some of the texts that are used by the Church to understand this doctrine, to fulfill it, to present it, to clarify what it means. We have to talk about fire. We have this idea of kind of purification by fire. This comes from some of the biblical texts.
1 Corinthians 3:5, that kind of thing. Yeah. So 1 Peter or something. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's one there. Gold tested by fire, right? I think that's the 1 Corinthians.
Yep, that's
anyway. So we have these scriptural texts. We're talking about fire, about purification by fire, as precious metals that are tried by fire. Father Bonaventure, how are the fires of purgatory different though from the fires of the damned? And I just want to re-articulate why purgatory is different from hell, from the idea of a kind of everlasting separation from God, and how the image of fire could be cleansing rather than tormenting.
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is I don't know, but I'll give it a shot.
That's never stopped us before. Let's be honest.
I mean, part of it, I think we don't use fire to cleanse much stuff, at least in our daily life, I suppose, today. So you're not, but fire does burn. I mean, it does burn things off really well. So now we use dishwashers and we have nice scrubbies and this kind of stuff. So like you wouldn't grab a blowtorch and just, time to do the dishes, time to do the silverware and just blowtorch those suckers. But fire consumes things that are not strong enough for it. Now, eventually, like fire consumes everything. But fire has this ability to consume without you could say consuming things equivalently. It depends on what the things are.
Right.
So that if you're using fire to purify something off of metal or something, then the fire will consume at a certain heat some parts, but you won't do enough heat to actually melt the metal down, you could say. So you're just trying to remove the imperfections from it. And so fire has this kind of ability to destroy imperfections. And I think that's the image that we want for purgatory, is that it's not like soul fire, you could say. It's not tormenting our soul. It's not fire hot enough to torment your soul, but fire hot enough to burn off, you could say, and torment the accidents, the tendencies, the habitual kind of stuff. This is all metaphorical, but you get my drift. That it's in a sense a surface cleansing, which of course in the surface analogy here, your surface are your activities and all this sort of stuff. But it's not designed to burn you. It's designed to burn off the things that actually aren't really you, your attachments to sin, which are what are keeping you from being you. Whereas the fire in hell, strikes me, is about you. It's about the suffering you. Now, so it's in a sense, you could say fire in hell is hotter, because it's something designed, or at least designed is a strange word for it, but at least it has the capacity to get you. It's because it's the lack of God, it's the absence of God, and that's how we could do hellfire as a different episode, I suppose, and what the heck's going on there. But I think the distinction's clear enough that the fire for Purgatory is cooler, and it's designed not to burn you, but the things that aren't you off.
When I was in the summer of my 8th grade year, I was 14. I was going into high school. I took this awesome trip with a bunch of my best friends. We went across the country hiking and backpacking and camping with a couple of our dads. We went to Yellowstone National Park. And at the time, so this is years ago, 2002, and the park was 20 years beyond one of its worst forest fires, almost 20 years beyond one of its worst fires ever. And it was there surveying these like 4-foot-tall pine trees that I understood for the first time that fire could be life-giving, because I had always in my life thought fire destroys in an absolute way. But then you realize in the life of the forest, the fire is necessary because it perpetrates growth and change in the forest. So the fire clears out all the detritus and makes it such that new life can be there in the forest. So, not that I think that Purgatory is a forest fire, but I do think that the forest fire is a helpful image to show that like fire can give life too, not immediately, but it. Well,
I think the other thing is fire is an active thing. It's an activity, and the fire of Purgatory, I suppose, it's not like God zapping fire beams or something, but it's His love. It's an activity of Him that we use the metaphor to describe as fire. So because fire has this like fire licks things. We have this personification like fire is an activity that does stuff. So it's doing things, and it's an agent. It's almost like living, like you have this living flame idea. You get the sense of like fire being alive. It's jumping around. We describe this with, and that's I think it's God who's doing this kind of cleansing for us. We use the metaphor of fire because it describes both the activity of it, but also the cleansing aspect of it. At least it did at the times, and perhaps we'll have to do some translation with the image as we move farther and farther away from actual fire, but. I don't think we'll move. The fire the people just like fire, so I think it's a primordial element. I don't think we have to worry about totally translating.
There are in our tradition other images for Purgatory. This one is more recent in Newman's extraordinarily beautiful poem, "The Dream of Gerontius." Yeah. He tells the story of a soul passing from death, the moment of death, escorted by his guardian angel. Through his personal judgment, his first judgment before Christ, and onto the angels relinquishing the soul as the soul goes forth to its final destination. And in that work, Newman envisages Purgatory as a lake. So he has these beautiful lines at the end of the poem where the angel takes the soul to the edge of the lake and sings to the soul, "Softly and gently, dearly ransomed soul, in my most loving arms I now unfold thee, and o'er the penal waters as they roll, I poise thee, and I lower thee, and I hold thee." And as he goes on continuing to talk about this image of the lake, a subsequent stanza reads thus: "Angels to whom the willing task is given shall tend and nurse and lull thee as thou liest, and masses on earth and prayers in heaven shall aid thee at the throne of the Most Highest." So it's very clear there that the image of the lake is Purgatory, and that the angels, that other souls, that masses on earth, we, the Pilgrim Church, have the ability to impact the soul's cleansing. And water there is an absolute opposite image of fire.
Yeah, and It's nice there, the connection though with baptism. You could say that Purgatory again. This is in a sense. It'd be odd if you didn't go to Purgatory. You'd be a saint immediately. But this is a natural in the way that that baptism is the normal way of receiving grace. Purgatory, I suspect, is the normal way of being received into the kingdom, of however it takes it. And that they are related, they're connected, of course, in the same way that when John the Baptist says, "I baptize you with water, but the one coming after me will baptize you with water and fire," such that even in baptism it has this. You could say baptism looks like water, but has fire capacity to it, capabilities to it, and purgatory is fire, but it has the water, the cleansing capabilities to it as well. They're connected because they still wash. It's about cleaning. I like the water metaphor too, though, because it's like the waves kind of you can stir the waters, as it were. That if you had this image of people in purgatory putting their own pools, and just like if you go into a pool and with your nephews and nieces and you stir up the waters, and the waters kind of so that the more people are praying, the more stirring up the waters is going, and the more cleansing. You could do that with the more blowtorches that people have, but I think it's easier with water. Water.
And that takes us to the pool, right? The pool, which is at Bethsaida or Siloam, which is the one, where the pool is stirred up by
and
the
then
angels.
A chance for healing.
Yeah, exactly. And so
I like that. I like the little lapping the waves.
Water that heals.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, another important point that Newman makes, and which is a very ancient custom of the church, which I think is worth bringing up, is the idea of praying for souls, especially at the Mass, is not new. And my favorite thing that I like to point people towards, Father Bonaventure, is this line in Augustine's Confessions, right? As Monica is dying after they've shared together that beautiful vision at Ostia, she says to Augustine, right, "I want you to do one thing. Remember me at the altar."
Yes.
So she tells Augustine to pray for her during Holy Mass. And that it's there. It's right there in the Confessions. And it's very ancient. I wondered if there were any other movements from the ancient church or any other ways that maybe Catholic tradition has encouraged you, or things that you thought were notable about this idea that we're praying for the souls as they're being cleansed.
It's for Dominicans in particular, it's a beautiful tradition because we pray for our brothers before our evening meal. Almost always we pray with the De Profundis, so it's Psalm 130. When we pray for the souls of our faithful, we read the names of the Dominicans who have passed on that day, and we pray for them. And we do this, of course. November is the month of this. That the dead, and we end prayers with the souls of the faithful departed. May they rest in peace. I mean, in a sense, we're always shooting up prayers for the dead, the church, the church suffering, and we just forget. I think we forget about it, but we're still in contact with them. So when you're a Catholic, as a Protestant, even if you believe in purgatory, you generally believe it as kind of a thing which is true. And might be scriptural in this, but as a Catholic, it's not just a mental, as you say, a knowledge, kind of a nugget of wisdom or truth, but it's a practice that we're just inundated with it because why? Because Christ came to save, and he came to use instruments, rational instruments, for salvation. He likes that. Apparently, he likes to have the saints do things. And he likes us to be able to participate in helping others. He doesn't have to do it. He can do whatever he wants, but he likes to do it through others. And he likes to be a part of a team, I guess, even though he's the captain and kind of also the director. Metaphors are just exploding all over the place. But that's when you talk about God and how God works in the world. I'm sorry, they're just no good. It's Susie Generous.
Well, I'm just gonna I've got to step in and save us all from that. Father Bonaventure was unwilling to indulge me tonight, so no indulgence talk.
You wanted me to talk about indulgences?
No, we're going to save that for a future episode. So I'm just going to drop
that's great.
that and leave the listeners that tuned in wanting to think about that to hang on for a future time so we can think about indulgences later. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today to listen as we bantered a little bit and thought through Purgatory. We hope that this episode was helpful to you and that it might be worth passing on to someone else and that it can help think about these things. We encourage you to pray for our beloved dead. Pray for them and ask their prayers in turn for us. Thanks to all who support the podcast. We especially appreciate our Patreon supporters. Know of our prayers for you, our listeners, and we ask that you would remember us in turn. God bless.
Thanks for listening to Godsplaining, a work of the Dominican friars of the province of St. Joseph. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Leave a review on your podcast app. and visit us at Godsplaining.org.